Hello, and welcome to another Dolly Helper Office Hours. My name is Marcus. I'm on the helper team here with Dolly. And really, we get together about once every 2 weeks just to kind of talk through some questions that everyone's having. Please feel free to reach out in the YouTube chat. I did send out a form earlier today for individuals who are so inclined to fill out ahead of time. So I do have those questions in front of me. Typically, what I do is try to address those when there's no questions running through the chat. Looks like there are none right now coming through the chat, so I'm actually going to go ahead and answer a couple of the questions that came through earlier. One of which is when, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but when is tax documentation being sent, and how are they being sent? All tax documentation is actually being sent by PayPal. Because we do pay through PayPal, they actually do generate a 1099 for helpers. So they'll be sending those to you shortly. If you have not seen that yet, if you're concerned about that, please reach out to PayPal directly. If you really just go to your PayPal website, and I believe there actually is a drop down for text information. And I'm sorry that I'm not recalling the exact um, information. I believe it's under help. If you click under help under your PayPal account, I'm 99% sure that's exactly where the tax information is. Um, Go there; they'll have a bunch of information. They even do have I believe they do have a resource for you to reach out to if necessary as well. But yeah, they're the ones that'll be getting those out to y'all. Let's see. Next question is, why are clients allowed to reschedule minutes before the start of a job? It's so unfair to us hands when we are at the job location, don't get compensated for time and gas. And I can agree with that. That's a pretty poor experience on your end. And something we definitely need to look into. The reality of it is, um, rescheduling, if we want them to continue to do a dolly, rescheduling is the way that we try to get that done. If they cancel the dolly, yes, there is a payment there, but then that's usually the end of the relationship with that customer. There's just no chance they ever come back after that, usually. Um, by allowing them to reschedule when things don't line up, that does usually get them to be able to continue to stick with Dolly, gives you another opportunity at getting at the Dolly and completing it. Same time, is it fair for you to get to that location and find out last minute? Probably not. Um, don't I'll be honest with you that they're like really we kind of call it just like an ad hoc, like as it comes up kind of situation when we try to address it at the moment. Um, and it really is because in general, it's going to be hard to get you compensated, on something like that. But that's something we need to look into, and we will. Of course, every time there's a poor experience on either side, whether it's customer or helper, um, we want to get that fixed. It's not good for you to have a poor experience. Why would you continue to work with us if you had repeated poor experiences? And that's not what we want. We want y'all here. So we want you here and excited to work with Dolly and in a good frame of mind to provide great customer service. And that's something that can rub you the wrong way and could really taint any future Dollies you ever work on, or whether you want to work with Dolly at all. So it's going to be a while before I'll be able to have a really good, clear answer for you, just being really transparent. But something we need to look into, something we need to maybe rethink, because that was how it was going, and that was how it's been set up since the dollar was established. But um, maybe it's not right, and maybe there's a better way of doing it. So we need to put some time into thinking through that. Let's see. Next question. What's the best way to get immediate assistance? I've emailed and responses came hours later when it's too late. So reaching out through your app's going to be the fastest way. Okay. But even faster, that's phone calls. Recently, we did make a change to our phone system so that when you call in, instead of going to a voicemail and potentially getting lost in that voicemail queue, or like let me take a step back. So, like most companies that provide any customer service where you call in, we have a system that's set up. That system takes information that comes in and prioritizes it. And one of the things that it does get prioritized are in progress dollies. Now, um, sometimes like, these systems work pretty well. We did find a glitch in them recently that we're currently working through to try to see if we can get it to prioritize better. Now, while saying that, I can tell you that if you do reach out by via text or via message through the app, typically you're getting a response pretty quickly. Now, if it's not going to be quick enough, okay, let's say that you have a customer right there with you, you don't have the ability to sit there and type and potentially wait, go ahead and give us a call. I can tell you that our call system has been greatly improved. I can tell you that it's pretty infrequent that people are waiting 10 minutes or more on hold. And I can tell you that when someone does wait longer than 10 minutes, our system now is set up that if you enter your phone number, you'll receive a call back from the helper support team. And those calls automatically generate. So what happens is if they're all on phone calls and answering, right, and they're going through and answering everybody in the order their calls received, if you are get to the point where you need to leave your number, you still stay in that queue. And what happens is you're automatically called back by the system. Now, is it possible that it could take 10 minutes still to get an answer? Yeah, possible take 15. I mean, the reality of it, possibly. Not likely, not common, but you should be able to speak with somebody pretty quickly. Um, and here's the reality. And the reality of it is we're still always, always, always working to help to get our agents to be faster, to give them better, to be able to give better answers, better detailed answers. And what else we're working on quite a bit is finding ways to get y'all the information you need so you can access it from your app, so you can self-serve on a lot of this stuff. Um, it's a pretty big task. I mean, the reality of it is it is a pretty monumental task that literally everyone in support in Dolly has been working on in some way, shape, or form. And we're going to continue to work on that to make sure to do what we can to make sure it's as easy as possible for you to get the answer you need quickly. The time that you, because here's the thing, um, time is money, not just for you, but for us too. And you waiting around for an answer doesn't benefit us either. It's money out of our pocket just like it's money out of yours. So um the faster we can get you responses, the better off things are. The more dollars you can do in the day, the better off things are for us. It's not lost on us. So yeah, we're gonna keep working on it, continue to do what we can to improve. I can say that it's markedly better than it was, drastically better than it was last May through the summer. It's been improving since. I mean, we've seen marked improvement starting in like September, October, and some really big changes happened in the last couple of weeks. Honestly, at least from a metric standpoint, where I can watch, because it's not just me. There's a whole group of people watching to see how many tickets are coming in, how many requests are coming in, or like information from helpers and questions from helpers. Um, how long they're waiting for that answer, whether it's a phone call or an email message or a text message. All that stuff is being monitored to sit there and find a way to be as efficient as possible, because we want to get you answers as quickly as we can. Okay, it looks like we have a couple questions in the chat. So let me start with Brandon. He's like, why am I having a harder time getting scheduled on two-person dollies I've requested than when I first started? I have 5 stars. So there's a multitude of things that can get in the way. And honestly, your rating is usually not the thing. What it typically is matching up two people with time, and it's usually time. You know, there are also fewer dollies out there. So that kind of makes things a little bit more challenging too. This time of year, everything slows down. There's a question that came through asking about what do we do regarding pricing with inflation, and the problem is inflation hits y'all, it hits the customer. We can't help get any kind of money in for anybody if we don't entice the customer. So sometimes this time of year, as things slow down, basically demand slows down. As demand slows down, price goes down. And that's honestly something that almost every moving company sees. Every marketplace style app based company does stuff that's based off of demand. And that's kind of what flexes that price a little bit. And right around this time of year, it's just there's fewer dollies, lower demand, more availability. So, and then with inflation on top of that, people are less likely to spend their money. So you have to kind of sometimes discount things a little bit to get, they really entice them to come and grab and use dolly. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely a point where that was doesn't make any sense for us to go past, and we frequently don't go past that. And but I digress. Long story short, um, it can very well be if all things equal, right? If you haven't changed your settings in any way, if you haven't reduced the time that you're available, if you haven't shrunk your service area, if you haven't, set yourself to only work with one person, all things being equal, it's if all those things are still the same, it is quite possible that this time of year things are slower, and that could be the thing that's making it harder. It's just the fact that maybe someone's lining up a little bit better as far as timing goes. And because there's fewer dollies out there, there's less opportunities to make those connections. Let's see, Mark. Let's see, how do I get the 1099K? 1099s, I kind of addressed it right at the top of the live stream, but in case you didn't hear it, long story short, it's coming through PayPal. They since they see all of your payments that come out, everything we send to you, they are willing to produce the 1099s, and they'll be sending those to you. If they haven't done it yet, they'll be doing it soon. Let's see. And yeah, it should be honestly within days of now. If it because Linus, I just see that you mentioned hi, by the way. So you mentioned that you're asking when is it going to be submitted? Within days. It's got to be within days. They should be sending it out within days. Okay. Let's see. Berto Sullivan, step up the pay. To step up the pay with the step up how much we're charging customers. And as I mentioned just recently, we're seeing a drop off because of inflation, because people aren't buying as many items, they aren't moving as frequently as they were like just a couple months ago, even compared to this time last year. We're seeing just slower everything, and unfortunately, is there a certain number that we have to make to be able to keep the lights on, to continue to advertise, to see if we can get you dollies, to send people out, to make partnerships with these retail partners that we have, and to keep the support team running? Yeah, it's there's a certain portion of that we have to take, but honestly, again, when we can, like, if we're making more, it makes it easier to pay you more, and trust me, that benefits us. We want people clamoring for dollies to complete them. We want the best helpers on them. Of course, if in typically higher pay generates that. um the thing is, if it was as simple as just cranking up the pay and having it work out that way, it's things we've tried, and it doesn't quite work out all the way that we want, so, or all the way that we need. And like I said, it's I don't know, when we can bump up price, I know we will. When y'all make money, it makes us money. The happier y'all are, the happier we are, the happier customers are. And that's never been lost on us. That's just how that system, it's a cyclical thing. One feeds the other. And when everybody's happy, everybody's, that's when things are just humming. And that's what we want again, you know? No, I've been on hold and it asks to leave a voicemail or hangs up after 10 minutes. At times it feels like it's not much better. Um, no, you shouldn't be asking, you shouldn't be asked to leave a voicemail now. It should be asking you to put in your phone number for us to call you back. That should be, um, that's really how that should roll. Um, because I will tell you this, it's been at least 2 weeks that I've not, like, I know that we've shifted voicemail so that it's not existent. If you tell me that this happened, a month ago, I can believe that. I can believe that. Hanging up in after 10 minutes should not be happening. Um, if it does, please let us know. It's something we can look into because that means there's something might be broken in our system. I will say that we haven't heard that from a lot of people, but if it is happening, something we can look into to see what may be broken. Brandon Schwartz, why am I getting paid less than when I first started? Though it depends on when you started. I know that there was a question I was reading through earlier, through one of the questions that came through the form. And someone basically asked, why do we not still get a guaranteed $35 an hour? It was in the original Dolly contract. Need to address the fact that at no point in time did Dolly say they were guaranteeing $35 an hour. They could say that helpers make an average of that. And that is something that actually I know we have updated numbers on the website recently. And the reality of it is that number still holds true. Like we'd still check that pretty consistently to see if that holds true. Now, that hourly amount is from the time that you arrive at a pickup location to the time that you leave the drop off location. That is the time that we're looking at to determine your time per hour. Part of the reason why is it is, I won't call it impossible because it's not impossible. But if you can imagine the monumental task it would be to sit there and be able to know that you're on dollies and doing dollies consistently and not some other program that you're coming from your job that's 50 miles away and we're paying you for that time from 50 miles away to the start location. It's going to be really, really difficult to sit there, one, and plan for that, and part of the reason why it's hard to plan for that is the customer's seeing upfront price. That's part of the reason that's part of the thing that entices them to join, to actually sign up and say, "Hey, I want someone with Dolly to do this." Is to give them that upfront price. It's a big, big, big selling point. We do our best to sit there and take into account some of the challenges of traveling, and we do absolutely take into account and do calculate in the time from your pickup location to the drop off location. It's just that there is no way to anticipate whether you're coming from 1 mile away, 10 miles away, 15 miles away. Your house is 5 miles away, but you're working 20 miles in the other direction today. That is something that's really hard to sit there and, one, get all that information in. It takes a lot of tools, a lot of resources to pull that information in and get that reliably, and then to build out something that could actually anticipate exactly what that pricing would look like. It's a challenge. It'd be really hard to give someone an upfront price and sit there and have it be fair, without knowing what someone's travel time is before that. So yeah, it's there's also just the fact that it's hard to pay anybody for anything where they're not actually doing the thing that, especially as a contractor, the thing that they're, being asked to do. Like when they're on the travel time is just really hard. So um, I don't see that happening in the near future. But something can that and I don't think it'll ever be off the table to find ways to get helpers more money. I will say that too. I don't think there's very few things that'll be completely 100% off the table, like forever and ever. But that is something that's going to take a while to figure out, and I don't know if the technology really is all the way there yet. Um, let's see. But getting back to the point of paid less, again, it depends on time of year. If you started in the summer, now lower demand, it's going to be a little bit less frequent dollies. I can also call out that this time not last year, but in previous years, people were also more willing to pay. There was less competition out there. What we're offering was a little bit different. So there was a point in time where we could actually charge people a little bit more and get them enticed to come in and use Dolly. There were less dollies being done, less helpers available, and that they command a bit more of a premium at the time. Um, what else kind of factors into that is nothing more, again, like we talked about it a little bit, but the market itself, it's changed. And taking into account some of that, it has, like, yeah, there's busy times of year people make a boatload of money. The slower times of year people make decent money, but not the money that they were, making, in the summer. So um Of course, that's the goal. I mean, it'd be nice to sit there and be able to have everyone make the same amount all year round. That's actually part of the reason why our sales team goes out and really does partner with so many retailers. I say this most weeks, but those retail dollies, some helpers, they jump on them and they jump on them and they do these amazing jobs with them. And that helps us out immensely. It helps us out because not only it's basically showing what Dolly can do, how great Dolly is, how great of a resource it is. It makes them want to expand to other stores. So these helpers that sit there and really do a great job, you know, sometimes, like especially if someone comes through and they do a terrible job, and let's be honest and let's be real, um, while 90 probably around 95% of you kill it, do an amazing, amazing, amazing job. There's a percentage that does fall a little bit short. All kinds of reasons, everything from just general customer service to excessive damage to showing up with the wrong without an assistant when you're supposed to have an assistant. Um, People have done wild things like send someone else that wasn't a Dolly helper. Um, there's in this, and it kind of does go on. But those are sometimes just being excessively late, not actually ever arriving, like no showing and not relisting. Retailers pick up on that stuff, and customers pick up on that stuff, and it reflects in your ratings, and people take notice and see that. Um, Getting those having is it's kind of this weird synergistic thing where if our retail dollars go really well, pardon me, our retail dollars go really well, the retail partners want to partner with us and expand how many locations are they working with. Not only that, customers see that Dolly is a very reliable resource. So now the customer sees that, hey, when I need something, these people just call them and you call them or you jump on the app and they just come and show up and do this great job. That grows. Now what else happens there is not only does that grow a Dolly as a group, right now, for better or for worse, what else that does is pick out which helpers, especially if a helper is always doing something really, really well. And let's say that a problem Dolly comes up and there's a helper that didn't do the best job, or there's a customer that has a really kind of challenging request, but still is within scope. Sometimes I'll ask for that helper that's knocked it out every time. And it's really hard for us to sit there and tell them, no, we can't do that. If the helper's willing to do it, we're going to ask them to do it because this is a high value customer for that retailer. That makes it a high value customer for us, which means that we've got to do whatever, we all have to do whatever we can to make it go as smoothly as possible. So, it's not ideal. I mean, ideally, what I'd love to see and what we are working towards, and hopefully we can um, get more and more information out there for y'all and get more and more resources for y'all so that any of y'all can do that. Literally everybody on the Dolly platform is some of the best helpers. There are some of the best people at moving anything big and bulky anywhere in the US. Anywhere the Dolly operates, we're as good as it gets and no one else comes close. That's the goal. That's what we want. And so many of you do that. Challenge is that some of you don't. And we got to find that balance and make sure that we help level y'all up so that it just keeps getting better and better. Berto, they keep more money now than they did before. Depends on which percent, like when you're talking about. Depends on when you're talking about. Depends on. It actually depends really on when you're talking about. Really, the thing that we've done more than anything is actually start charging more. We haven't seen huge changes in like as far as like how much is held back. Believe it or not, there hasn't been huge changes. Helper pay, when we look at time from start of Dolly to end of Dolly, hasn't dropped drastically. There was a point in time where it was crazy high. I will admit that. And it was just a factor of, and it happens in the summers. It literally happens in the summers when busy season hits. There's lots of people asking for help and not a whole lot of people available to help. And most helpers who have been here for a while noticed it. They'll see it. And it's during those times, yeah, it's phew, it's a whole lot of it's good money. When it comes winter, it's more difficult. Again, reaching out to those retail partners, getting more of them involved helps end up leveling out that cyclical kind of thing that happens, that peaks and valleys that kind of happen throughout a year. That's cyclical with any business anywhere. Um, Having good retail Dollies, having lots of retail partners, and having them have a ton of faith in Dolly as a company and y'all, all that does is open up more opportunities for y'all to make money on Dollies. And honestly, it also helps us get to the point where we can charge them a premium. Gets to the point where we can sit there and make it so that again those valleys just aren't as deep. Like there might still, like, I'm sure there'll forever be a seasonality to moving. It's just the way the industry has always been. Um, but we're hoping that maybe we can level out some of that variance that happens throughout the year. Let's see. Yeah, right. Me and my wife just started. I'm a helper. She's a hands. Now, can I want us to be scheduled as a team? So there's a couple ways to do that, and something that I've always like encouraged is, especially if it's you and your wife, y'all work together, right? Do the conditional request, bid on the dolly, let her know that you're ready. That you, hey, I see this dolly. Let's get on it. She bids on it. You both bid on it. The likelihood of you not being paired together and going right away is pretty darn slim. It's pretty slim. Okay. So yeah, set up that's what I would encourage you to do is set up a conditional request and do it that way. I know that there are people and there's a whole team aspect where someone has a lead helper and an assistant. That assistant doesn't have it's a different kind of setup. What it comes down to is when that particular setup, the lead helper is, whoever the helper is the lead helper. So that would be you. Yeah, right. And basically, we'd be sending you a price that's a team price, and you'd be in control of how much you paid your wife, who currently is a hand, but could also be your assistant. Um, we're talking through some things with that. And I right now, for now, I would still try to do the conditional request, but we may have another alternative in the not too distant future. Um, just because there might be a simpler way to do it. Um, it just does get kind of a little interesting to set you up as a team, then have her as a helper. And then I'll be honest with you, what happens is there's a lot of conflicts that kind of happen all of a sudden. It gets a little weird in their system. So um, let me think through. We're going to continue to think through that. We've been thinking through. I've been thinking through ways to make it easier for people to match. That's been the whole goal. Um, Having people that tend to work together always work together. That's where conditional requests came from. It was the idea behind it was to make it easier for two people who didn't really know each other to team up and be a team. With you and your wife knowing each other, it does kind of change things a little bit. But we're going to continue to think through that and see if we can come up with a good answer, so that and something that makes sense and is reasonable. So just give us a little bit of time. Use a conditional request for now, and we'll keep working through it. Okay, let's see. Hi, Jose. Hi, guys. I'm wondering if you guys can put permanently the power bit token, because when you don't have one, you can't get no dolly orders. Ah, you're talking about power ups. Um, we probably aren't getting rid of those completely ever. We're probably it's going to morph. Like I can tell you this, that system's going to change. How exactly, I don't know. That's something we've been talking about exploring here, probably in the second quarter of this year, because it's a great system and it's something. There is a benefit there, but we don't know if it's really, we don't know if it's the most fair. We don't know if it's something that is it was the idea was an intended to reward people that got really good ratings, arrived on time all the time, and got compliments from customers. That's what that whole system was set up for. We need to figure out a way to continue to have that stuff be rewarded. That's what power ups are right now, and it thing is, like I said, it's going to change. Don't know how it's going to change. It's been, I mean, we've thrown, I can tell you, as far as like opportunities out there and things that we've been thought about is maybe taking power up bids and creating credits for you to use in a Dolly store to buy stuff that you need, or maybe it ends up being some kind of monetary bonus. I mean, there's been all kinds of talks to what it could potentially be, and I don't know what it's going to be yet. But like we'll be looking into it deeper. We will, because yeah, I mean, it has some it does have some great intended effects, but it has some maybe it's not as good as we want unintended effects. You know. Let's see. Yeah, right. Oh, you mentioned Nevermind. I'm sorry. I'll try to speed up my answers too because I realize that we're about halfway through and Marcus and his chattiness is kind of eating up the whole half hour already. So let's see here. Let's see what we can do to get through a little bit faster. Why are you taking more than half of what the customer pays? I can tell you that that is not always the case. I can tell you on average, because I just got the average again just the other day. It's less, it's actually closer to around 35, 40%. Are there dollies where there's more taken? Yep. A lot of times I'll tell you this, customers will tell you a price and what they fail to tell you about is tax, insurance, and quite frankly, a lot of times they round up and they don't round up by a little bit. I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but I've literally seen how I've seen somebody that mentioned to us like, hey, this customer mentioned they paid $400 for this dolly, and me and my teammate got 180. What the heck? And of course, when we heard that, we're like, whoa, that seems really far off. So we took a look into it. The customer didn't pay $400. They didn't. They paid like 330, 340. It was significantly less than what they told the helper. And it was enough so to the point where it went from looking like we took 60% to it being really close to about 35, 40%. So it's I can say consistently that um I can tell you, are there times where there's dollies that might be better more than 50%? Yep. And there could be a lot of reasons why. But can I tell you, is it the norm? No. Not even close, not even not it's just not the norm. So let's see. Noel, a few weeks back, I requested a dolly where the price was increased. It was also a haul away. I believe it was $68 and bumped to 107. On the dolly on the day of the dolly, unbeknownst to me, it was reduced to 85. I would not have taken the haul away. I addressed it with support. They confirmed and said it was going to be made right. It never was, and even after repeating messages and follow up. Okay, so you're saying it wasn't fixed. Now, there's someone else that actually sees those more often than I do at the moment. Um, if this is related to a retail dolly, there might be some hinkiness there that I'll be honest with you. There's some stuff that happens that's required to happen with some of our partners. Like that increase might have been something that like, and that's something else. I'm curious why it was bumped to 107, because here's the other thing. That bump to 107 might have been a mistake and they may have had to correct it to 85. I don't know without looking at that specific dolly. I appreciate you reaching out to support. Um, the best I can tell you to do at the moment is I'm going to ask you to read. I'm going to hang on one second. I typically do not, and I will repeat, do not do this during office hours, because I'll be honest with you, looking at one dolly and taking this time to go and do that ends up taking it away from a lot of other people. I just took a quick look, Noel, because I was just kind of curious if I could see something. I'm guessing this looks like a retail freight issue. If that is, we'll have to talk with them. And if you've reached out to them, I would encourage you to reach out again and have them speak to you because they're gonna because that is a very 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 specific um, group, and they do things a very specific way. So I would encourage you to reach out to them directly. If that is not the case, if you do want to reach out to helpers at dolly.com, include the Dolly number, say, hey, could Marcus or River take a look at this? They'll get it up to us and we'll take a look and see um, what else may be going on with that Dolly, and see if we can find out what's going on as far as with the price with that particular situation and why it was reduced. And also, if it was reduced and it was something that um, you accepted at 68, but we bumped it to 107 and it had to be reduced for some reason, we'll explain it and we'll tell you exactly where we came from. Okay. Let's see. The price doesn't make sense. Driving a double door fridge 30 miles and up 33 flights of stairs for $60. If it does not make sense for you, please don't do it. That's the best I can say. Um, if it is not the best for you, don't bid on it. If it sits there, fine, it sits there. It might be someone where that makes sense for them. Okay. So it's one of those things, and I don't know what I don't know exactly the Dolly, so I don't know if you're talking 30 miles from pickup location to drop off location, or if you're talking 30 miles of total travel time. Um, Also, I'd be interested in the three flights of stairs because I don't know where that may have come from. I don't know if it's a Facebook Marketplace Dolly, if it's a retailer. There's a couple of things that kind of go into it that can kind of dictate the price and skew it one way or another. But I mean, I'll say this: $60 for 30 miles and three flights of stairs does sound like I don't know. Like that might not be in most people's wheelhouse. And I'm encouraging you to not touch that. It's one of those things that if it does not make sense to you, don't do it. Okay. Let's see. Roya G. Hello. I keep having an email, Dolly, to clear blockers to get job notifications. Why the minute they clear the blockers supervise, I get job alerts? I have no clue. Um, that shouldn't happen it should not happen on a consistent basis. Um, Typically when clearing blockers, what that does is kind of reboots things. So what worries me and what has me thinking about this is the fact that that's not as like that's something that we typically hear about. Like if it's systemically like where we end up with a lot of calls throughout a day, like, hey, we keep having these helpers call in to clear blockers. That's something we can actually reach out to our engineering team and say, hey, we've seen this uptick in people requesting this service. Something's going on the back end. Can you take a deeper look? If it's happening with you primarily, um, I'm curious what else may be going on. If it's something that has to do with a resource management thing within your phone, if it needs to be um, uh, basically uninstall and reinstall, if you're not on the most recent app or most recent update, sometimes it can cause that kind of stuff to happen. So double check that. Um, but yeah, I mean, honestly, what clearing blockers does is just it basically it's almost like a hard reboot, and it does it for your account specifically, which means I'm curious what's going on, and it's something that if it was something that was happening system wide, if it was happening to you on our end, I'm pretty sure that we'd start seeing that happen to multiples. So just double check you have the most recent app, um, uninstall, reinstall it, and see if you continue to have those same issues. If you do, reach out. Okay. Mista Piccha. Why are large enclosed trailers not allowed to take box truck jobs? My trailer is big enough, not bigger than some box trucks. Because it's not a box truck. Long story short, there are industry standards in moving, especially when it comes to retail stuff, and trailers don't fit into that anywhere. Quite frankly, if you look, if you and I'm dead serious, typically big and bulky retail partners, if you ever see what they typically have, what they use, Um, they use semis to get them to a cross dock location, box trucks from then on out, or cargo vans. Trailers are typically like that's something that we allowed and added because we saw it being a good opportunity, especially for people who want to do dolly, but maybe don't have the biggest truck, or maybe don't have a truck and they have a SUV, but they can still carry what a pickup truck carries. So that is why that's it that way. That's why it's set up that way. Um, has there been talk about use cases where we change that? Yeah. Thing is, and the biggest hurdle we have, and it's changing perception of an entire industry. That is the hurdle we have to get over to be able to sit there and have trailers be box trucks. And I'm not sure if that is a hill we are able to climb at the moment, but it might be something. But it's something that may happen in the future. But at the moment, uh, long story short, because it's not a box truck, just like a pickup truck's not a cargo van, or a cargo van's not a box truck. So, let's see. Um, you've also been seeing $0 jobs. I was told it was due to a route. How do you get on the short list to do those routes? Honestly, do a stellar job at on your dollies. Tell you that that's really it. Because what happens is, and it depend, because a lot of those routes are actually for dedicated, like I say dedicated, it's not even dedicated, it's for really specialized partners or experiments that we're running, that we're trying to figure out how to grow, expand, and make something that's bigger. They require some additional work a lot of times. They require some additional expertise and and sometimes additional assembly to get them done. And sometimes when you see those as $0 because they're part of a route, and our systems catching up and cleaning up some of the stuff that they're actually packaging and setting up into a full route. But to get on that short list is the easiest thing and best thing to do is absolutely knock it out of the park, because there's days when some of those helpers they either have to move on to something else, they become unreliable, they sometimes just are unavailable, which, guess what, this is a contract job, this is a gig economy job. If you're allowed to not have days where you're available, um there's days where you're not available, and that's fine. And those are days when our retail, especially some of our specialists and our agents, really look for those helpers in those areas that do a stellar job, and call them up and say, "Hey, need to talk. Would you be willing to do this? I can talk you through how to get it done if you're interested." So just keep knocking them out. Keep a high rating. Keep your damage percentage low. Keep your relist percentage low. Give that great customer service that so many of you do, and chances are a retail partner is going to notice. They're going to ask you to be around. Or if there's something where something falls up, or we need help in a hurry, especially those stellar people that sit there and just knock it out the park every day, they may get a call asking them to help us out, or to help our retail partner out, or a customer out. Let's see. Rude Dog Majestics. The price make it not worth doing dollies. And I'm telling you, trust me, it's an internal term, but there's a get off your seat price. We know there's such a thing. To get off the couch, it's like it's got to be at least this much for anyone to even think about doing that. And we understand if it's not there, people aren't moving, and we need people to move. So, you know, some of these are not where you want to be, but it might not be the right dolly for you for various reasons. So, you know, just gonna kind of move on, because we kind of talk the pay talk quite a bit. Dolly needs to take lesser pay than the 40 to 60% they're getting. Container Store pays 85, Helper pay is 55. That's Dolly profit 40%. Funny you call it profit. Um, there's a cost to being able to, one, send people out to get those partnerships with the Container Store, the programs that run that they need to use to be able to book those dollies, the insurance that's on those dollies when things aren't delivered or they're broken. And maybe you don't do it, but I'm sorry, people do. Um, there is a cost to this. And while you're calling it out at 40%, okay. But what about I mean, the other thing is like there's an insurance that goes on all dollies in case you get injured. It's an insurance like product. It's something basic. It would be it's called occupational accident insurance. It is the equivalent of a gig economy version of um, basically if you get injured, being able to help you get through that injury. That's really what it's for. And that gets to be paid on every dolly. There's tax on every dolly. There is money going out that we don't, and I'll own this. Is it as fully broken down and transparent as it could be? No. Is it something we're striving for? Yeah, I'm pushing for it. I'm not by myself. We have people in the data team pushing for it. We have VPs pushing for it. It's just that it is complicated and convoluted, and getting that exact number every time and getting it right, it's hard. Um, but I will tell you this: I don't think I won't call it all profit because there is something that sits there and requires a company to run, and it's not like um, it's not like you're sitting here and keeping astronomical amounts of money. I can tell you, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to give the actual number of what was paid out this year to helpers in 2022, but it was a substantial number. Um, it was really like I was floored at the number that I saw. Um, and it's one of those things that um, it's always going to be a moot point. And here's something else, and I want y'all to think about this. And I'm going to go back to this because we talked about the get off the seat price a little bit earlier, or get off seat pay. But the reality of it is, a lot of times we're presenting you a price, and we're literally asking you, is this enough for you to go out and do this dolly? And when you bid on it, you're saying we're taking that, and it's in the way that it's set up and the way it's written out in the helper agreement is that's a yes. Yes, you're willing to do that dolly for that price, as it's written. Now, if there's other things in there, and there's things that they didn't take into account, okay, different story. That's what adjustments are for. That's why you can add them in the app. That's why if there's an issue with something, take lots of pictures and send an adjustment form, or we can maybe leverage that. But number one, biggest, quickest, best way to take care of yourself is enter it in the app. But the reality of it is, we're saying, is this enough? And it's one of those things. It's like it's enough until you find out what maybe the discount is, right? So it's one of those things that's like I can get where it can be frustrating, maybe, but the reality of it is we are trying to show you a price that looks like it makes sense and seems fair to you. And it seems like it's enough to make it worth your while. And we're going to ask you to take it. And if you don't, that's okay. But can I say that 40% on a dolly is possible? Yeah. I'm going to tell you, typically with Container Store, it's not 40%. Typically is lower than that. But you know, it's kind of a lot going into it. Does Dolly check the time for each job we do? And if so, how can we see that within the app? Um, Not in a manner that we can share. Being really honest, we just don't. Um, Time is something I would encourage you to track, for yourself. Um, and part of the reason why, like I said, we do keep track of that stuff, but not, like I said, not in a manner that we can share it, primarily because um, timing kind of goes into that algorithm and that proprietary information that figures out how pricing happens. So it gets a little bit hinky, and it gets a little bit sketchy on whether we can actually talk about it or not and how much. We can talk about it. But yeah, I'd encourage you to sit there and track it yourself if you're concerned about it. Because yeah, we just, unfortunately, from a proprietary standpoint, it gets a little hinky, and also just from execution standpoint, That's something that was never built into the app, never desired, because it was something that we never thought people would desire to have. Um, it's something that may come up if enough people ask about it, but I'll tell you this: as far as a feature in the app, it'll be a while before it gets there. There's a lot of other things we want to take care of first and make a lot better first before we start throwing time in there. Oh, you're more than welcome, Brandon. Sev Black. Can y'all factor in toll costs in New York? We have some very high toll charges. For example, from Brooklyn to Staten Island, tolls are $10 each way, and same for Queens and Brooklyn. I can tell you that we do factor that in, um, but we can only factor that in from the time where you pick up somebody. Where you pick from, if you're going from the pickup location to the drop off location, I can tell you that it's factored in. We can't factor it in both ways. It's really hard to try to convince a customer to pay for someone's toll both ways. Um, so it's a challenge, but it is calculated in there. Anytime it's in part of the algorithm that it's actually been created to figure out pricing, it's in there. Um, so yeah. Let's see. Knopf, Houston. Asked the customer about Dolly, details on a dolly. He said he paid 125. Customer helper payout was 35. Helper payout was 35. Hands was 20 to 25. Dolly profit was 60. Again, so many factors not taken into account. I just went through that a few minutes ago. I'm not going to do it again, but I also will tell you that that's, like, again, not including insurance, not including the multitude of other multitude of other money going into it. And I'm willing to bet that, and also just to kind of call this out, and this is because I am being a little bit nitpicky here. If you're looking at 35, so $55 total pay versus $70 total pay, when you're looking at $125, that's a significant change. It's a pretty large percentage, and it's not quite 60%. So, I mean, wait a minute. Yeah, it's just not quite 60%, especially when total payout. I mean, $125, you split that, 50% of that is what, 62.50. That means if y'all were paid what, the $60, that's right at 50. It's right around 50%. So I get what you're saying. But you're rounding, and we're working in numbers that are small enough that when you're or that are affected enough and big enough variance that when you round like that, it's gonna throw off that percentage quite a bit. Darnell, how do I get helpers numbers? I'm new. I just need a few workers. I have a pickup. It's hard to get helpers. So continue bidding and make sure that your settings are set up so you're willing to work with a variance of people. Okay. We don't provide anyone's numbers anywhere because that ends up getting really weird from a privacy standpoint. Us posting your private information is something that we just try not to do. Customers never have your private number. Like, we do not share private numbers and it's something we just, outside of some very limited circumstances that typically involve a regulatory agency, a law enforcement agency. Those are about the only two times when your information may ever come out, ever. At least private information. We just do not share that. And typically, even when we do provide that information, there still has to be a bit of there's got to be a legal precedent for it. There's got to be something clear, some very clear reason why we should be sharing your information. There has to be a precedent there, or else we aren't just going to give that away to anybody. And that kind of falls even into across helpers. So there are some social media groups with helpers. Might be worth searching there. And also, what I would encourage you to do is when you do get paired with somebody, take each other's numbers down, set up conditional requests. As a new person, yeah, it may take a little bit for that to happen, but it'll happen. And once you find that group of people that you're really like working with, it seems like those groups just grow. It seems like those networks grow. Um, so and that's something that hopefully we can happen. I hope that happens for you soon. Let's see. Why can't you be more transparent with the numbers? Helpers make this much, hands make this much, Dolly makes this much. Working on it. Because it's not as simple as that. It's there again. It's one of those things that that's a goal to get to. It's not as simple as you know, like for instance, insurance, right? Um, I don't know. I won't go that route. But I can tell you this, and I've talked about this plenty of times here. There are times when we've lost money on dollies. We're trying not to do that anymore. But there's times when the variance between what we make it on dolly is pretty wide. And saying that, you know, we can sit there and consistently have that information be 100% transparent and very clear to see. We just aren't there yet. And that's something, again, we're working towards. And part of the reason why is a huge variation, and trying to explain that variation every time is difficult. And it's quite frequently that variations is a matter of trying to get someone to um, either getting someone to pay for that dolly to begin with, and then getting someone to pick up that dolly. And again, when we send out that price, the first thing we're saying and everything, the only thing we're ever asking when we put anything up on, like anytime a dolly comes up, only thing that we're asking you every single time is, hey, are you willing to do this dolly for this price? That's it. Part of the reason we go that route is because it is a lot more simple. It's simpler. It's more straightforward. It's easier for us to be able to sit there and even manage the variations that happen on the customer pricing side too. So, um, yeah, and I'll also admit this: um, there are other things, like there's ancillary costs that y'all just like we don't always include and don't always talk to you about, because here's the other thing: y'all think dolly profit is all dolly profit going in our pockets. What y'all forget are things like damage claims, right? Some of that stuff, there's a deductible with damage. And if y'all have ever had a damage claim, what you'll notice is you don't pay the full amount. Part of the reason for that's because we're trying to make sure we're somewhat fair to you, in the sense that sometimes you're kind of sabotaged. Something might be a little bit broken or a little bit loose or may break easy. There's other times where it's pretty clear that somebody did something that they shouldn't have. And the way that we handle damage claims is we sit there, and the money that goes up, the money we're choosing there, it's like even if we took the full cost of the dolly, that doesn't pay to fix someone. Like if someone, and the ones that tend to kind of really get us and really be hard to sit there and handle is let's say refrigerators, and someone lays one down on the side instead of carrying it upright. And then we have to sit there and talk to this customer and figure out a way to sit there and get them reimbursed for this refrigerator. And there's a helper over here saying that doesn't break the refrigerator, but I have a customer over here who's saying the refrigerator doesn't work. They had a technician come in, take a look at it, and confirmed it wasn't cooling, and they determined it was an oiling issue because the refrigerator was laid down. That's a $1,200 refrigerator. You may have made, I don't know if it was a short trip, 70, 80, $100 on it. Where does the rest of that come from? Insurance has a deductible to it, even for us. So I don't know, and I'm not going to sit there and claim I know exactly what that is, because while I deal with damage, I'm not in the weeds on that, but I do know there's a deductible, and we have to pay that. Maybe that's something. And the thing is I can tell you that on something that's $1,200 is probably more than that 100. And it's one of those things that it complicates how easy it is to say this is how much you make, when we have to take into account damage claims, when we have to take into account refunds, because a helper may have showed up late, didn't communicate with the customer, because sometimes, or maybe it was rude, And here's the thing: sometimes some of the best helpers have bad days, and maybe you were short and someone perceived it wrong, and sometimes that requires us to provide a bit of a refund. There's a litany of reasons. This is a laundry list, and all those variables all impact what ends up being able to be put in the company to keep basically the lights on, and y'all out doing dollies. And when we get to a point where we can be more transparent with it, we'll do that. We just aren't there yet. And yeah, you know, so Roya, why are you paying so low for 3 bedroom moves? A regular 3 bedroom move is above 950. I don't know. Again, if there's a dolly that doesn't make sense, please don't bid on it. Because here's the reality of it. Maybe because again, we look at a lot of data. Maybe that's really kind of the average rate for what's going on in the area between other gig economy platforms and actually moving companies in traditional moving companies too. That might be about where they're at this time of year. So we put it up there that way because here's the thing: fine, we price it at $300 more. No one ever even bothers to sit there and say, "Okay, I want that. I'll use Dolly." Right? All of a sudden, then people move away from the platform altogether. Customers do, and they don't bother to look at, or maybe they'll go ahead and they'll check it out on the app and say, "Eh, not for that price," and they go and try someone else. So it's always, always, always a balancing act between what a customer will pay and what will be good for a helper and keeps the lights on here. Okay, let's see if I can kind of pick things up. Oh, because we are over time, so let me kind of pick things up here. Um, yeah, cool, Wantosh. Thank you for trying to connect with Darnell. Um, yeah, Mark, I'm with you. Okay, cool. Uh, nobody was take nobody was taking it in the market, so when it's was increased, I jumped on it, and it was 3 to 4 days before the actual dolly. I actually found an email from the morning showing the price had decreased. If you can send like again, include that in that email, like just like attach it, screenshot it, whatever when you reach out to helpers@dolly.com and we'll take a deeper look. Um, I'm wondering, yeah. So yeah, just send it over. We'll take a look. Thank you, Joel, for kind of thank you for the kudos, Joel. And yeah, I mean that's the reality of it. It's like it's still a business. Um the reality of it is we're still growing and we're trying to grow and want y'all to come with us on this journey to continue to grow. It's never going to be lost on us. It is something that I can tell you that our founder, CEO, Mike Howell has repeated over and over again. He's incredibly proud of how much we pay helpers. He's incredible. He wants helpers paid well. It's a driving force. The idea that this is a way for someone to be able to make, and don't get me wrong, we're not where we want to be. We're working to get to this, what we really want more than anything, this to be a reliable way for someone to make a living. Basically, for this to be a job board that's so consistent with such high performing helpers that all we have to do is put this up on the app. We have this whole huge network of helpers that get paid really well and do a stellar job, and they can sit there and they can work their the time they want to work and go hang out and spend time with their family. That's really what it's all about. All of this is for an output, ultimately an output of people, one, not having a pain when they like, not being not people not dreading the idea of having a move, and two, people being able to sit there and pick when they want to move stuff and make a living at it. That's the goal. And we aren't there yet. We're close. Uh, I say that. How about this? I say we're succeeding in some areas. I can see that where there's people that are making fantastic livings doing this. Um, we want more people doing that. So we have a ways to go. Okay, Noel, thank you. And yeah, I'm back again. Just like helpers at Dolly.com. Ask for say, hey, can Marcus or River look at this, and we'll get on it. Yeah, absolutely. I own a box truck and want to be able to negotiate pricing. How can I do this? This isn't that kind of job board. Really, if you click on whether you want to do a dolly or not, that's it. That we don't have. I'll be honest with you. If we sat there and had to sit there and negotiate every single dolly that came through, we would need a support team that's literally 100 times what we have right now. That's not something we can support. So, what's on the board, what you see, typically what you see is probably what it's going to end up being. And if it's not something that's a good bet for you at the moment, leave it be. I'll tell you again, it's prices will likely go up here. Usually start sometime in March, April, and then it kind of tends to go up and stays kind of steady and pretty. And usually everyone's getting paid a bit of a premium through usually right around September, and then it starts to taper off because of demand. So, um, yep, it's going to kind of move on from that because again, not something we're really built for. Um, no, leave the fridges as stairs to the young guys. I feel you. What's going on with the Sam's Club loads? Nathan, I believe if you something that's being tested, growing, and figuring out, when there's something a little bit more clear about it, you'll get more information about it. But yeah, testing quite a bit and some progress being made, but you'll hear about them soon enough. It'll come in a bit of an announcement. Louise, rates are bad. Why are the dollies so cheap for box trucks? Why don't Dolly invest in making better rates? Again, we've already went through all this a couple dozen times today. Customers aren't willing to pay as much, so the options are you take a lower. It's kind of, and trust me, we're in the same boat, eating the same. Honestly, dealing with the same thing that you are. Customers are only willing to pay up to a certain point, and the options are: do we make anything, or do we make nothing? Just that simple. If something doesn't fit for you, that means that dolly probably isn't for you. Um, when we can raise rates, best believe we're going to do that because again, we take a percentage, not any solid numbers. So as numbers go up for you, numbers go up for us. So, and that's all. And honestly, again, that makes everybody happy. Why is it paying to do dolly? You said the last time on video, you said dolly pays more in the winter. Now you're saying I have never said dolly pays more in the winter. Never. Am I? If I did, how about this? If I did, it was 100% me misspeaking because I have consistently said that the winter is our slow season. I've said that. I think I started doing these a little bit less than a year ago, and I will flat out tell you. Actually, no, it's a little bit over a year ago now, and I'll flat out tell you that winter is always our slowest season. And I will tell you every single time moving is cyclical. I will tell you every time everything falls off out for October. So if I may have, I'm not gonna, I won't say that I'm not infallible, but that was 100% a miss. If I said that it was more in the winter, that's me misspeaking because I don't recall, and I will tell you, I do not recall ever saying that, ever alluding to that. Because summer's always been better because again, demand is higher. When do people move? Most people, just forget the retail side of it altogether. How many people move in winter versus summer? How many times do people use move like Dolly and similar type companies to help move their kids in and out of dorms, on and off campus? All that stuff is so much busier in the summer than it ever is in the winter. And that's always been the case. Let's see. My problem is I'm waiting to get accepted for my first dolly. I bid on quite a few dollars and still nothing. Double check your range. Double check and see what you're willing to do. The more open you are to doing the more things, the bigger your availability, the broader range you're willing to work, the more likely you are to get paired with somebody. Because again, this is a bit of a hinky time of year. It gets a little bit slower, and depending on what market you're in, it does get really slow, and it does. And we're working on getting a better idea how to find that right balance between having enough helpers and enough hands and enough teams and being in the right and having the right market size and having that number to keep everyone busy without flooding a market necessarily. We're working on that. We're working on finding ways to make that happen. Um, Hands will bid, but it's harder for helpers, especially if you own straight trucks. You're talking like a pickup truck, Luis, or a box truck? Typically, I'm gonna be honest with you. Typically, if you have a box truck, um, dollies are box truck are our lowest pool of vehicles. We have way more than we did a year ago or 2 years before that, but it's still our lowest pool of vehicles. So if it's talking about box trucks, it shouldn't be massively difficult. But okay, well, oh well. Brian, how is 40% a fair cut on Dolly's behalf? I'm not going to get into the ethics of that and trying to sit there and explain why it's fair to you versus us. Um, there are a litany of things out there that because I'm going actually no, I'm not even going down that road. I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. We're showing you a price and asking you, does it make sense for you to do this dolly at that price? If you say yes, whatever the percentage is on the back end, how is that wrong? It might not feel like it's appropriate or fair to you, but again, it's really like what you forget and no one ever takes into account is we lose money on some dollars because we do absolutely sometimes have to reduce how much we take to get somebody to get to one get a customer to pick up and say yes, I'm willing to do this, and two, to make sure the price is fair enough for you. And then again, when we come into the damage that happens, the refunds that happen because people can be rude. If we start really dialing in and getting to the nitpicking and nitty gritty of how much truly every single dolly costs, or even what an average is, coming up with a number and really picking that out and really honing in on it, one that's really tough. Something we will do someday, but it's hard to say that what happens when, I mean, and here's the other thing, and I'm going to be super blunt about this. There are helpers out there that cost us more than what we make with when they do dollies. They don't stay around long, but that happens. There are times when we have solid helpers, solid, consistently really good, that on a dolly or two, they'll mess up and they'll mess up to the tune of more than we made on that dolly. So what is fair? It gets said. It's don't forget that there are like there's things that we insulate y'all from. A big part of it's damage. A huge part of it's damage. Another big part of it is refunds due to poor service. It's not like we sit there and dock your pay. We have to give a refund because somebody cussed out a customer. You'll probably end up suspended for a little bit, but we don't dock your pay. So just remember that there's a litany of things that happen. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of keep moving. There we go. Thank you, Mark, for yeah. Of course, Ricardo, Luis, that's absolutely why this. That's fine. I don't know why you joined it for that bad. Um, if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's fine. And don't get me wrong, there's people in areas that know their area well enough that they could go off and do that hustle by themselves without us being involved and make more money than they make here. Yeah, that's 100% possible. Happens a lot. Other part of that, though, is there's ancillary costs that you end up paying that you don't take into account the same way when we're eating some of those costs for you when it comes to basically finding you jobs, setting you up with customers, having some kind of insurance so that if you cause damage, you don't have to pay for that. Um, there's stuff there. Again, so okay, well, let's keep going because I do want to get through this, and there's so many more questions, and I have been so chatty again. I'll try to be faster. As I scroll down, Bup, 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 bup. How many dollars are you expected to do monthly if you don't like something or that? You don't have to do. You do dollars when you want to. There is no monthly quota. There's no weekly quota. There's no required expectation of certain number of dollars done in any length of time. We have plenty of helpers that'll really they'll work hard in the summer and then dip out for 6 months. This is not. This is there isn't a requirement. We know that's why we don't say you need to. We like once you agree to do something at a certain time, we hold you to that. But we don't say you need to be on the clock from this time or that time, or you need to be here this day. No, that ain't us. That's not y'all. This is why this is why you're a contractor and not someone that's employed where we're dictating you have to be here at this time for this length of time. We need to see you picking up dies and accepting all of them from on X, Y, and Z day. Yeah, that's just not that's not what that's for. That's not what we're built for. So um let's see, Darnell. Or no, you're not penalized for nice. If there's not a dolly that works for you, there's not a penalty for you not bidding on a dolly. There's zero. There's nothing. No consequence to that. Bidding on it, then saying you don't want to do that. Okay, there's a realist penalty with that. Typically, the first one you do, we're going to end up saying okay and just don't do it again. And make it a habit. Yeah, there'll be a financial penalty with that. But there's no requirement to sit there and bid on anything. There's no demand on that. All the dolly workers working hard just for look, man. Again, thank you for calling me Tyrese Gibson. I appreciate that. But let's be real, man. Again, if it isn't for you, it isn't for you. I can't tell you anything else. What I can tell you is I've seen plenty of people here, many, many, many at they're there's many people here that make more than I do. Many, many, many dolly helpers out there making significantly more, and some making multiple times what I make. Um, I will say this: those who stay busy, like who are wondering, sometimes, and I'll admit, sometimes it's market. Sometimes it's market. It's just market, and that's something we always work to make a little bit better. But yeah, okay, I got to stick to not talking about pay anymore. Sorry. Thank you, Fresh Kiddo. It's all about supply and demand. If people want to take 40% jobs, and the algo will throw that. Unless people stop taking them at the algo, price will go up to 6. Not necessarily, because there is a point where it doesn't make sense. We can't raise the price anymore for a customer to take it. Don't ignore the fact that we still got to convince somebody to pay for the dolly. If they aren't willing to pay that money, none of it happens. So um, thank you for answering that, Mark, for Darnell. There isn't there it one again, this is a marketplace. It's not really you basically signed up to get access to a group of customers and jobs. It isn't really truly employment. Even if you are gone for a long time, if we do see people are gone for a very extended period of time, we may deactivate your account just to prevent any kind of account attacks or any hinkiness going on there. But all it takes, literally, more times than not, if you're going away for 2 years, haven't done a darn thing, you reach back out to us, we'll reactivate you. We may ask to do a background check again because, let's be real, in 2 years, some stuff can happen. Most of our helpers, that's not the case, but sometimes people dip out for 2 years or dip out for 2 years because they caught a charge of some kind. That's something we have to take into account. But in general, eh, you know, nothing there. Fresh kid, welcome to capitalism. Yeah. I will absolutely go down. I will repeatedly say, um, I've seen some exploitive stuff. I've been on the receiving end of some exploitive stuff. Um, Not a fan of that. Wouldn't be here if I felt like y'all were being exploited. Yeah, I don't do that well. So I'm not gonna get into me anymore, but let's keep going. Did I get you to to deliver out of your state. In very, very, very rare instances, typically when a market borders two states, so like Philadelphia and Wilmington, Delaware, there's that border there that within 30 minutes, that kind of situation can happen. New York to New Jersey can happen sometimes. DC to Baltimore, that can happen. But in general, you just aren't going to cross state lines. It gets into a whole different thing because then it's interstate travel is a whole different level of moving that requires a lot more regulation that at the moment we're not looking to do. Let's see. Are you a worker or a supervisor? Both is probably the best way I can say that. I am a team lead. I do a lot of this. I partner a lot with our helper support team and work with them to try to really level them up. I am also one of the specialists that answer questions, handles some of them when there's compliance issues like people not showing up. I'm one of the people who reach out to you and give you a call if there's something more serious. I'm one of the people that give you a call. So a little bit of both. Let's see. People should be better at posting pics, taking measurements. We're walking into these blinds. Yes, understand it. Understand. There is this issue with conversion with people getting help, getting customers to take getting people. It gets weird. We have watched things to the point where customers will start to book things. If there's too many clicks they have to make, if they have to, sometimes we force them to enter in a measurement, or if there's too many pictures required, sometimes pictures required at all, they'll drop out and won't book the dolly and we don't see them again. There's a trade-off there though, right? And there's always something we're working towards to see if we can find that right balance. Um, there are things in the work that I believe will make that a lot more stringent in the future. So that's just as a side note, Brian. Because yeah, sometimes you roll in blind. Not only that, customers lie. Not going to sit there and pretend like we don't see the fact that a customer will say, "Hey, I need you to move this box," and you arrive and it's a 400-pound safe. You shouldn't be moving it. The reason why they put box there is because they knew they couldn't book it in the app. We wouldn't let them, so they tried to circumvent and cheat the system. If that ever happens, please let us know. Take a picture. Do not move that. We'll work on getting you a cancellation fee. The price changes once you accept it. Why is that? It should not be happening. Typically, what's happening with that is not so much an accepting. When you accept that it changes. A lot of times, what happens is something on the back end gets changed by the customer, and there is a bug that sits there and changes the price. Typically, if you whatever price you get in that email that we send that's a confirmation, we will honor that price every time. Okay. And well, I won't say every time. We will honor that price as long as it's something that looks glitchy. If someone has reduced the number of items that are there, we're gonna reduce the price. Chances are the price is gonna get reduced. If something change, and even more so, that is really the big thing is if a stop gets removed or if the distance gets shortened, then we'll probably go ahead and reduce the price. We might reduce your pay a little bit. But if you see something like someone added something and it dropped, that's a bug. Reach out to us. It'll get straightened out. Okay. Reach out to the helper support team. They will straighten that out. Is the price of the dolly task divided per two helpers, or is it the total price for myself? Depends on how you're set up. If you're set up as a team, it'll be for you and your assistant. If you are a helper without a team, without an assistant, it'll just be your price, and then that's what you'll see. You'll only see your price. If you're a hand, you'll only see your price. So, yeah, if you do see a price in the app, that is the money that is coming to you. It's just a matter of, do you have someone else that you're working with that you need to pay out or not, or is that just something you get to hang on to all by yourself? I'm trying to speak to a worker and ask a few questions. If it's not possible, is it okay? Thank you for the information anyway. There's multiple ways to reach out and ask questions. I don't know if you're talking about like helper support questions or someone else that works on Dolly. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but if you can reach out in the app, ask your question. If you double check the in the app also, shoot, let me make sure I get the call right because I always end up saying it wrong. So I'm pulling up the app right now. If you click on the three lines at the top, What am I trying to say here? You should be able to go into. Why am I drawing? Ah, helper resources. So in the app, it's really hard to see. I'm not going to be able to show you. Shoot. But when you go into the app and you hit the three little lines, scroll down, you'll see something called helper resources. Click there. There's a lot of decent information there. Of course, there's questions you may have outside of that. Reach out in the app, ask the question. We'll go to a helper support team agent. If they're not able to provide you an answer, they'll escalate it to a specialist or me, and we'll provide an answer for you. We'll give you the information you need. Um, okay, there we go. Brian, I'm trying to figure out. People should. Hey, if they send you something that's a deal breaker, meaning, like, okay, I see what you're saying, Brian. Like, let's say that they do something where they say, "Hey, I'm moving three boxes," and then, like I said, but then you ask them for more details, and then, or actually, here's a better one. The one that seems to come up all the darn time is, "Hey, need you to move this easy chair," and you look at it, it's like, "Hey, can you send me a picture?" And it ends up being this crazy huge massage chair. That's not the same as a lazy boy. It's not the same as some Berkline lounger, right? A recliner. It's not a recliner. It's way bigger than that. If you get that kind of information, reach out. Say, hey, this dolly may be out of scope. If it's a deal, because that's typically the stuff that's a deal breaker, right? It's something that is either way more than what they said, or it's way bigger than what they said, or way bigger than they described. We'll look into a relist fee for that. We'll go ahead and we can remove that relist fee. And to tell you the truth, what else happens is if we see they booked something they shouldn't have booked, we're going to cancel that dolly. And the thing is that they booked it inappropriately and they really did egregiously do that. Um, we'll get it taken care of. I promise you that. Okay. I get a call from Dolly. I do a Q job. I give a price and I don't get the job. Why call? Because if they offered you a price and then you sit there and say, yeah, I'll do it for twice whatever that price is, they're not going to, okay, we can't accommodate that because the customer is paying a price, right? Typically, if you're getting a call, it's probably from a retail group, from someone from retail, typically. And if they sit there and say, hey, this dolly, we're asking you this dolly for 65 bucks. And you're like, I'll do it for 150. We didn't make 150. We didn't make that on the dolly. So you're asking us to pay you to go do it. Well, how can we stay in business for paying you more than what the retail partner has agreed to do the dolly? We can't afford that. So yeah, they call because they hope that you take it for a price that's reasonable. But you know, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Um, yeah, and Mark, I think, yeah, and Mark, if you send stuff up, I think I've replied to you before. But yeah, ask. Luis, we're going to keep moving on now. Because again, if you don't want to, if you don't want to bid on the dolly, don't. I know you don't like hearing that answer, but it's really just that simple. It really is just that simple. If the price doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. A lot of times, it works for somebody, and that's okay. Thank you, Fresh Kiddo. Yes, we're going to charge you with 72 hours notice because it says it in all of our relist penalties. We've said it a million times. If you relist, there's a penalty. And the thing is, if you got charged, it's not the first time. And chances are you're not saying anything about the second, third, or fourth because those end up being like $5 penalties, $10 penalties. When you start relisting so frequently that you end up with $30 to $5 penalties, it's because you're bidding on something saying you're going to do it, then change your mind every time. That's a cost to that for us too, because then the customer gets rid of usually cancels the dolly. If they don't, and that happens a lot, a lot. We can't have that behavior happen all the time. And Maybe there's ways to look at it again, and yeah, we may do that. But right now, no. I'm sorry. It's just yes, 72 hours is going to be a penalty there. Um, there is a threshold that we are talking about looking into the change. But again, here's the other thing: if there's a legitimate reason why you relist, like if your vehicle broke down on you, if you end up being sick in the hospital, if your a family member is sick in the hospital, we allow you to sit there and dispute a relist penalty. We're just going to need some information explaining why and some way of verifying that information. If it's reasonable, we'll remove the penalty. Um, Ned, your rates are stupid, ridiculous. I can't complete one job and probably never will for that money. Cool. Address it a million times, not going back to it. Other, you charge price down. Other, you change price down during a job that's fraudulent. Again, if it happens and you book the dolly or someone changes something, we on if it's reduced items, there might be a change. If it's not reduced items and it's a glitch, we'll fix that. Okay, Luis, you're completely like, honestly, dude, I'm out. It's not even worth answering any of your questions anymore because kind of you're at the blah 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 now. It doesn't matter. Again, it does no good to charge customers more if they're not willing to pay it. Doesn't work that way. If you've made these comments several times, if this is, I'm out. This is a waste of time. I'm sorry, man. Um, if the price shouldn't be changing once you accept it. If that happens, send a screenshot of it. We can take a look at it. If it happens after something's changed, as in the customer changed details, the price may change. You have. Here's the thing: the customer makes that change. You have time to make that change. You can, if you see that, we let you know immediately. When it happens, you can relist without penalty. Um, we should have at least a 24-hour gap to relist a dolly without getting charged or warned. Not when it costs us money every time, Brian. If there was a way to do it without people abusing it, maybe. But right now, it doesn't work out that well. We tried that. Believe it or not, we've tried no relist penalties. We've tried just warnings. We've tried reduced relist penalties. We've tried shifting them. We tried attaching deactivations and suspensions to them. And and guess what? The frequency of the habit hasn't it's improved, but it's still there. If it's one of those things, the only reason that's there is because there's a actual financial consequence on the other end, and it keeps happening, and it's one of those things we can give someone the benefit of the doubt and we try, but there's a point where all of a sudden it's like, yo, if maybe this isn't for you, and part of what that penalty is there for is to kind of say, hey, maybe this isn't for you. If you aren't able to make it consistently, maybe this isn't the right idea. Maybe you should change the way that you bid a little bit. It's really trying to encourage people to tweak their behaviors so that it's not something that happens on a regular basis. Because again, you aren't penalized if it's something that you don't do. If you don't do frequently, you aren't actually penalized on it. Let's see if you have ever ordered a dolly as a customer is cheaper than getting two random people at Home Depot. Not always, because I've checked that. But yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I just read that wrong. If you have ever ordered a dolly as a customer is cheaper than that is actually true. I'm sorry, kiddo, you're right. Frequently, it's cheaper than order in than to random people is cheaper than most of the companies that are out there that offer to do moves. Yeah. Luis, you do this full time, no complaints so far. Thank you, Luis. I know, man. You can always ask questions, and if something does come up, we'll try to look at it and do the best we can. Fresh kiddo, Dolly's affordable and hands are getting the short end of the stick, but that's what a business is all about. Um, Again, we try not to give you the short end of the stick. As a matter of fact, I still will go and say maybe if you, I still would say that there isn't really too much of a short end of the stick at the moment. But you feel what you feel, and that's okay. Um, Other, you email me some customers claim the stolen item that was not in the list in the Dolly list. How can a claim be made when it's not even on the Dolly list? If it's something that ends up actually, to tell you the truth, if that's we'll email you if someone says something's damaged, we're gonna reach out to you. And the thing is, I don't know if you're talking about I don't know if it's something you moved because you agreed to move it on the side. Because guess what? When you do that stuff, we end up in a weird kind of position. Just telling you that now. Also, I don't know if it was a full apartment move. I will also say this pretty clearly: if something we email you for a reason, if you reply to us and talk to us about it, we're trying to understand what happened from your perspective. You probably weren't penalized. You probably weren't warned. If you reached out about that, you're able to sit there and clarify what happened. Because here's the thing: customers are going to claim what they're going to claim. We're not there to verify it, so we have to ask you. And if you give us enough information and you give it, it's easier. Mark, let's see, we're getting much better pay. Bellhop is 15 minimum. Me getting guaranteed 61 for 2 hours labor. Took me 45. That sounds great to me. That happens a lot. Thank you for calling that out. And I'll admit, there are dollies, especially labor dollies, where there's more money made than on the other side. So, and it's a matter of partly how long it takes you to get it done. Sometimes customers overbook. I've seen a customer sit there and book for 6 hours, and helpers were done in 3.5. That was a heck of a payday for them. Um, Thank you, Mark. Also, it's been a while since we signed on here. Is household good moves? Yep, they're still prohibited. Washington hasn't really budged on that too much, and we're kind of waiting on. And I'll tell you the truth, a lot of other companies right now are operating in a very gray area. They came at us and said, "Stop this," and we decided to play nice with the regulators. There may be a day that it changes, but it's just not happening for a little bit. Prices are absurd. Okay, Brenda. Again, I've kind of addressed it a million times. There should be a link to FAQ to this video. It's becoming redundant. Agreed. That's why this is on a live stream. Brenda, I'm out. That's also very true, Mark. I'm not again. I'm out, Brenda, because I've addressed this a million times. Again, we can't pay for. I don't know where you're coming from, and why I can't. We can pay for you while you're driving from pickup location to drop off location. Can't pay you before that. Again, out. Um, most of the time my app doesn't show all available dollies in that area. Also, it should be mandatory for customers to upload pictures. Again, I kind of addressed this a little bit earlier, Javier. Believe it or not, having pictures sometimes on some dollies actually prevents a customer from even bilking. Again, it depends on the location, depends on what else is going on. We are looking into ways to figure out pictures better. But yeah, um, can't sit there and guarantee that's happening yet. Working on improving details and descriptions too. Booking process on the whole, we want you to get more information. It makes it easier for you, easier to scope, easier for us to price. It won't, Javier. You might not see all available dollies in your area because it does depend on your distance that you're willing to work. It depends on what your notifications are set up for. It depends on what items you're willing to complete, what kind of vehicle you have. There's a lot of reasons why it won't show you every dolly in an area, but it'll show you really what fits into what's into your category, whether you're a hands, helper, pickup truck, box truck, cargo van. Let's see, Brian Andre. I'm sorry, Andare. How is it? How is the work for a box truck? Don't a Tacoma with a rack and sometimes trailer, and it's okay. Um, Hard to say. It varies from location to location. But I will say this: box trucks cost the most to operate, so they are typically those dollies are the highest paid dollies. They tend to be the ones that major retailers tend to want. So it's a lot of crate and barrel stuff. They tend to really want box trucks. Sometimes with some of these smaller furniture groups that we work with, they really want box trucks. A lot of like when it comes to apartment moves, they really want box trucks. Um, It varies from location to location, but typically, also I'll say this as a box truck driver, you're going to see pretty much every dolly there is. Um, Now, most some of them might not be worth it from a financial standpoint because it does cost more to operate a box truck, as Brenda made very clear. But you know, so I'm going to kind of call out Brenda. 150 is not what you're getting. You're not spending $150 driving 30 miles in a diesel. That's not likely. But anywho, I have gone way, 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 way over. I do want to thank y'all for hanging in there with me. Appreciate the conversation. Appreciate the tough questions. I, I mean, I'm sorry if I will admit that I did get kind of pretty short with the pay questions because I'll be honest with you, it's it's every week. It's been 3 times. It's been every 10 minutes. Um, it's all things that I unfortunately I can't. It did eat up a lot of time, but I'm glad to answer those questions for you. I'm glad to sit there and have these debates about it because I do think it's healthy. Um, Also, hearing this stuff also gives me fuel to go and talk back to our leadership about it. So thank you for your time. Um, cool. Uh, Thank you, Mark, for kind of calling that one out. But yeah, you're right. And believe it or and remember, talk to your tax professional because all of those things are very much something that typically gets some help. And again, 8 miles to the gallon, that's fine. Louise, we can do the math on 30 miles if you like, but it's still not 150. So, hey, y'all, take care. And I don't know where you live where diesel's 8. Um, it's a possibility or 8 miles to the gallon for diesel. Yeah, it can be. It's a pretty big truck if you're getting 8 miles to the gallon. That's a pretty massive truck. But yeah, hey y'all, take care. Have a good 2 weeks. I will see you back here, and I'm going to keep it to an hour next time. In the second week of February. So it's going to end up being second Thursday of February. So it'll be February 9th.